Says this meeting is being live streamed.
Oh, you
Live.
do see it? You do see it?
Yes.
Okay. I don't think I did this right, but okay. Maybe. All right, so Brother
Says
Fleming.
this meeting is being live streamed.
Yes, okay.
Live.
You see it? So this
Yes.
is okay, July 28th, map 5 on the American Muslim 360 daily broadcast. I'm Amatullah Alaji-Sabrie with my two co-hosts, the Honorable Cheryl Sutter. And I think I did this right, but okay. Maybe. All right, so it's going twice.
Says this meeting is being live streamed.
Yes, I know. It's showing it twice. Okay, July 28th, map 5 on the American Muslim 360. Okay, you see it saying this meeting is being live streamed. Okay, let me go back. I see. On YouTube. All right. So, Brother Fleming, I'm going to ask you, we're recording. I'm going to ask you if you would open us up with a prayer.
Alhamdulillah. Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Ar-Rahmanir Rahim. Maliki yawmiddin. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين.
Amen.
With the name of Allah, most gracious, most merciful. All praise is due to Allah and Allah alone, most gracious, most merciful Master of all the systems of knowledge. Thee alone do we worship and thine aid we seek. Show us the straight way, the way of those upon whom thou hast bestowed thy grace, those whose portion is not wrath, nor those who go astray. Amen.
Amen. Alhamdulillah. Thank you. It's good to be with my co-host, Brother Ismail Fahmi in Texas. And we usually open with our icebreaker or brain breaker or mood, what do I say, mood activator.
Shifter. Yeah, mood shifter.
Mood shifter. Sister Cheryl inaugurated this practice and takes great pleasure in initiating it every segment of map 5. So we'll let her go ahead and shift that mood, my dear sister.
Shifted. Different from a shapeshifter, but he's a mood shifter. So I've been traipsing the country doing what we do. And I've encountered a lot of people.
I'm sorry.
One of the things, see, I hear it. One of the things that's sparking in my mind is yesterday was the 35th, not yesterday, Saturday. Yeah, was it yesterday? The 26th was the 35th anniversary of the Americans with Disabilities Act. Only 35 years. It seems like it was a lot longer, but it's not. But because this is, people with disabilities were covered under the equal employment provisions in the Department of Labor, but Bush saw fit to sign this act into law. And so my question for you is, what is one, since we're talking politics, what is one law? I'll give you one or two laws that you are most thankful for, that you don't think we could do without. It's one or two that are currently on the books that you don't think we could do without. I know it's a hard question, but I'm interested in hearing the responses.
Okay, I'm going
We
to
just have,
ask Fleming to go first because I got a call that interrupted me. And I need to go off camera for just a moment and also maybe hold my response.
Yes.
all right. Alhamdulillah, Sister Cheryl always
Okay.
puts us on the one. All right. Well, it just so happened that we're celebrating yesterday the adoption finally of the 14th Amendment. It was passed back in 1868. And of course, we know that in reference as simply the due process, but it was more than just that. But that amendment has been used as a protective clause for a number of cases before the Supreme Court, et cetera. So yesterday was the anniversary celebration, passed, of course, in 1868. That's a very important part of our Constitution. That's very, very relevant today. In fact, it's probably going to be applied more today than it's been applied in some time, given our new administration. Another one is very, very important to me, of course, is the Voting Rights Act of 1965. That one was a Herculean movement. It's been gnawed away a little bit because they reduced the Article 5 of that legislation, which allowed federal courts to make a decision when they changed any kind of lines being withdrawn, et cetera. They said they no longer had to do that. And of course, when they did that, you had uh, an onslaught of challenges of district lines being withdrawn, et cetera, and all kind of things being used under the premise, false premise, that we no longer need uh, racial identification lines because it's not an issue anymore. We become color conscious. What a big fab, I just call it like that since we're on a family program here. But those who stand out, the amendment, of course, 14, which gives us due process, and also established citizenship rights. So those people that were formerly enslaved, et cetera, if you were born in this country or naturalized, and that, of course, included due process of law. And it just so happened over the weekend, I was involved in a case. I'm on the Ethics and Qualifications Board for the state of North Carolina. And so if anyone violates a code when it comes to building structures, whether it's electrical, fire inspection, plumbing, et cetera, if they make a big boo-boo, they have to come before us and explain what happened and why before they lose their license, and or we send them back to school. So we had to involve that case somewhat even over the weekend as I dealt with two felony cases. So those two stand out, 14th, and of course the 1965 Voting Rights Act. And I hope that satisfies my sister inquiry for my 30 seconds.
I'm glad you said both of those. Now I don't have to. And um, and I will tell you that there's something happening on Wednesday for voting rights. So I'll give that announcement in a bit. Brother
Yes,
Ismail,
there's a hearing.
I know you're working, but I'd be interested in hearing what you think, sir.
Yeah, there's going to be a Senate hearing on Wednesday dealing with
Yes,
voter
Padilla.
suppression laws, and I've been invited to participate in that. I can't go to
Yeah,
DC, but I will be on the live streaming component of it.
I will be
Uh,
on there as well. Our senator,
okay,
there's our senator, Padilla. And so I received the same notice. So I'm
okay,
looking forward to hearing what they're saying because I will be, of course, I will be in a different part of the country, but yeah, I think this is so important. I'm actually been telling people to make sure they log on, right? And
yes,
and pay attention to this because it's very important.
Yes.
I was trying to see, and with the 14th Amendment, I'm going to say, before I tell you my answer, I will say that I think that any laws that uphold human rights and equality and, that ensure that people are treated with dignity and that the treatment is fair, doesn't mean I don't even like the word fair. It doesn't mean it's equal, but it's fair, right?
Mm-hmm.
Anything that prevents that is legally unlawful to discriminate or uh, anything that's like not just promoting social justice, but prohibiting injustice,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
If you take it from the other lens, right? Because people promote social justice in one way, but not realize that they can be there because there's some unintended consequences of injustice to others. So it's a delicate walk, right?
Yeah.
So uh, I think the due process and the rule of law, you get rid of that one, we have problems. We have
Yes.
problems. You get rid of the civil rights laws that prohibit discrimination based on race, religion, gender, and nationality, religion, any of the other protected characteristics. I mean, that is what's fundamental to this society and the basis of providing everyone an equal opportunity. Now, whether they take it or not is a whole different thing. Whether they understand it or not is different. But
Mm-hmm.
providing the opportunity is very, very important. Um, the rule of law is what I call the 14th Amendment, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
it's not just the principle of the rule of law, but that's what creates that is creating. So it establishes what the rules are, right, sir? But it also
Yes.
establishes a framework for freedoms, for our safety, for our full participation in society.
The government. Exactly.
Yes. So, Brother Michael, Assalamu alaikum. Um,
Alaikum assalam.
let me tell you what our question is. I'd be interested to hear your answer as well. Our question today is that what are one or two laws that you believe are so important that we cannot or should not do without? Brother Fleming is giving us two really good examples. So I'm trying to get, no, don't repeat his. His was the 14th Amendment, which establishes, due process, the rule of law, and citizenship rights for those born in this country. Yesterday was the anniversary of the 14th Amendment, and then also the Voting Rights Act of 1965, which speaks for itself and why it's important. So, talk to us, sir. I know Ishmael is working. When you get a break, sir, if you want to come off, you could let me know. But we'll take you next, Miss Brother Michael Hameen.
I need a moment to process that.
Take a moment. Take a moment. You want me to sing while you take your moment?
Whatever makes you comfortable.
Well, like what's allowed.
Well, they gonna slap
I was
Ishmael.
gonna ask you to repeat the question, but I hear it now when you said for Brother Michael. So
Okay,
you
I'll
say
repeat the question. No.
two
Here's the
go
yeah,
ahead.
one or two laws that you believe are so important that we cannot or should not do without.
Well, I'm gonna go. I'm assuming I'm gonna go with constitutional laws that we're talking about. That's what I'm gonna assume.
Any of them, yeah.
Yeah, of course, the First Amendment. Has anyone said the First Amendment yet?
Nope, you're the first one. Good.
Yeah,
Thank you.
most definitely freedom of speech, freedom of press, religion, assembly, petition. I think that's most definitely one that makes us unique. I was telling, matter of fact, it was Brother Michael, I say between our knowledge body and the freedom that we have here in the US, we have it's like we have a spaceship, but we only use it to go home, take our children to school, but we have a vehicle that can take us so much further, and I don't think we're utilizing it like we can. And inshallah, we'll utilize it more in the future. But between our knowledge body and the freedoms we have here in the U.S., we could be doing so much more. And a second one, um, I'm partial to pleading the fifth. I'm partial to that. Thank God I've never really been in a situation, but I believe even if I was in a situation where I know I was innocent, I may not say anything just so I can't be incriminated. Because I'm sure there's been people that have said stuff and they put them in, based on what they've said, they put them in positions to be found guilty. So I would probably plead the fifth even when I know I'm innocent until the proper time to talk. And those are the two quick things I have. I'll stop there. Assalamu alaikum.
Like my song.
Well,
So, to put some context in this, so it's the Fifth Amendment that gives you the right against self-incrimination, and that protects people from having to be compelled to testify against themselves in any criminal case. So that's the Fifth Amendment. And it's like going back to due process and fairness and in our legal system and in our society, Brother Fleming. This is it's a fundamental part of our legal system is the Fifth Amendment, right? That's why we say we plead the fifth, right? And I believe that's the others that you mentioned are part of the Bill of Rights, and the first 10 we learn them in school really young. Amendment 1 is our freedom of speech and freedom to petition, freedom to assemble. Amendment 2 is the right to bear arms. 3 is soldiers, housing soldiers. 4 is the search and seizure or search and arrest laws, right? And then 5 is again, it's your rights in criminal case not to incriminate yourself and to have due process in that criminal case. And then it's followed by the next couple, which also deal with the legal system. Amendment 6, which is the right to a fair trial. 7 is the right, what your civil rights are in civil cases under the law. 8 is how they set bails and fines and punishment, and that you can't be unduly punished, right? And then Amendment 9 are the rights that are retained by the people. And this one is something that is kind of important that most people forget about, because it says it's the strict letter of the law talks about, everything which is not forbidden is allowed. So there's a concept that you can take any action unless there is a law against it. That's a wide open paradigm, right? But that's the legal maxim for that. And then what was that? 9, that was 9. And then 10 is states' rights. States have explicit rights under the Constitution that cannot be superseded or what's the word I'm looking for, Fleming? No superseding. Overridden by the federal government.
Abridged.
Yes. And then you have the later amendments, which was 11 through 27. 27 is the most newest, were about lawsuits against the state. So you have 10, which is states' rights, and then you have 11 about suing the state. There's some rules for you to be able to sue your state. And those are constitutional rules. And then we had 12, which is presidential elections. 13, everybody should know 13. We should all know 13, abolishment of slavery. And then 14, of course, is civil rights. All of our rights are encapsulated in 14. Well, those that are not mentioned in the prior 13. 15 was suffrage rights, Black people, right to vote, plain and simple. specifically for Black Americans. 16 was income tax. 17 is how we elect our senators. 18 is, that was the liquor, the big liquor prohibition. And then we had women's suffrage came in 19. So Black suffrage came in 15. Women's suffrage movement was in Amendment 19. 20 is our terms of office, which limits that the president and the vice president, the terms that they can hold. And this is where when there was something that happened on January 6th, we had to remind people that the Constitution says that the president and the vice president's term ends at noon on January 20th. And senators and representatives' terms end at noon on January 3rd. You don't get to change that without a constitutional amendment. So it's not like, I know there was like fear that one president would not leave and he wouldn't get out. But the Constitution says it doesn't matter what you as an individual say. The Constitution says your term ends at noon on the 20th of January, which is why at 1 o'clock, you usually have the new presidents and vice presidents sworn in. And January 3rd is when all of your senators and reps terms in, whether they wanted to or not. And you have to swear in new ones. They usually swear them in before. And it also tells you how many terms the president can serve. And then 21, so let me see. 18, I think it's 18. 18 prohibited liquor. 21 came back and repealed the prohibition on liquor. And then 22 along with 20. So 20 talks about the terms of office. Amendment 22 talks about term limits for the presidency. And then DC did not have the right to vote. The residents of DC did not have the right to vote until Amendment 2030. And then poll taxes, even though Black and women had the right to vote under 15 and 19, there were still poll taxes. So the poll taxes were eliminated under 24. And then 25 is, what does the presidential succession look like if something happens to the president in office? Amendment 26 talks about how 18-year-olds are eligible to vote. And then the last one, which is ironic considering they don't want to do work, is how congressional pay raises are handled. And it prohibits that senators or representatives cannot get a certain compensation until the election is taking place and the vote is taking place. With that, Sister Amatala is back, and Brother Michael Amin has his hand up. Are you ready to answer the question, sir?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Well, we'll take you, and then we'll take Sister Amatala.
Okay. Alhamdulillah. Yeah, and because this is map 5, I wanted to look beyond the construct of U.S. laws, and the first one is supported by Dr. George Washington Carver. Uh, the obligation to serve God's will and plan for His world and for His people, and the second, the obligation to establish and structure healthy and productive Muslim community life. And I'll stop with those two. Thank you.
I think Sister Amatala is still figuring out the feed. Sister Mahasan, did you want to answer the question? You're on mute. Okay, Sister Amatala, we'll go with you, and then we'll see about Sister Mahasan.
Okay, repeat the question, please. I got
Yes,
so
ma'am.
much going on in this background. I don't even know. Am I amateur law? Who's on first?
Who's on third?
Oh my
Uh, you are. We got jokes this morning.
goodness.
The question is, what are 1 to 2 laws that you believe are so important that we cannot and should not do without? So Brother Fleming mentioned the 14th Amendment, due process, citizen rights, and also the Voting Rights Act of 1865. Brother Ishmael mentioned the First Amendment, freedom of speech, assembly, and then also the Fifth Amendment, the right to not incriminate oneself. And then I think you just heard Brother Michael.
No, actually, I had to get up and leave. I heard him say that he didn't want to be in the confines of U.S. law. That's when I had to leave the room.
So the freedom to, the obligation to adhere to God's laws and the obligation to establish a thriving Muslim community. He took his cues from John Washington Carver.
Okay. Well, I think Ismail already said 5, but I will say I'll say Amendment 6, right to a speedy and public trial by an impartial jury. I'll say that, especially in light of what's going on today. And I would say that someone already said voting rights, right? I think Fleming said voting rights.
He said voting
Right.
rights.
I'll say 14. All persons born or naturalized in the United States.
The one Fleming did say that one too.
Oh, you said that one too, Fleming?
Yeah, he took both the good ones.
Yes.
Oh, hey. Reedy Fleming, huh? Okay. Did someone do 15 already?
No, ma'am.
Okay,
No.
I'll do 15. The right of citizens of the United States to vote shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or by any state on account of race, color, or previous condition of servitude.
Absolutely. So that's our non-discrimination clause for those listening and not looking at the Bill of Rights, but that is, those are fundamental to allowing Black Americans to vote, was the 15th Amendment, and preventing thwarting of that right to vote. Let me see. And I think that was it, unless Mr. Massa wants to say something, sir. I'm going to turn it back over to you. I do.
Thank
I
you.
did want to repeat. I wanted to repeat one thing, sister, because you're back on. Is this everything? The legal maxim that everything which is not forbidden is allowed, which is the concept that anytime that you can take any action as long as there's no law against it. And then the laws can't be retroactive. It's like a really important uh, maxim of our legal system. So this feeling that you can go back and withdraw. Now, this is one of those things that's covered under there, right? The fact that you can't not go backwards and withdraw someone's naturalized citizenship, or someone's who was born in the country under the rule that you have these freedoms under the 14th Amendment. But after the fact, they revoke those citizenship rights.
Are we seeing a time coming in? Assalamu alaikum, greetings to everyone,
So,
where the actual laws are being calibrated according to the amount of corruption that our elected officials may be guilty of or significant in their processes. Like when Trump said he could be standing in Times Square and shoot someone and no one would arrest him. He wouldn't be arrested. So that viewpoint is on the basis of corruption, the amount of corruption that that individual is comfortable with. And so that law that what you just mentioned, Sister Cheryl, could be abused in that way.
Yeah, it actually can, but it cannot. And I want to say this before I turn it over to Sister is that there can be no abuse of the people without the people's consent.
The lack of objection.
I'm going to repeat that.
Does that
I'm going to
flip
repeat it.
into?
I'm going to
Okay.
repeat it. There can be no abuse of the people without the people's consent.
Right.
Not in a republic that's built on democratic principles.
Right.
Because we live in a republic and
So
we adhere to democratic principles.
is silence considered consent in some
Yes.
situation? Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. And no protest.
Sister Mahasan, let me interrupt you here. Do you understand what the question is?
No, dear, I don't.
Okay.
I came in, I think, after it was made.
Okay.
So I'm just
let me
trying
repeat it.
Cheryl's going to repeat it right now. Cheryl, repeat it, please.
Thank you. So the question is, what are 1 to 2 laws that you believe are so important that we cannot or should not do without? We have the 14th Amendment, the Voting Rights Act, the Freedom of Speech and Assembly, the 5th Amendment, the obligation to adhere to God's laws, the obligation to establish a thriving Muslim community. Amendment 6, the right to speedy trial, and Black Suffrage Amendment 15. Do you want to add to that without repeating someone else?
No, I'm leaning toward the abiding by God's laws. I'll put that out there, and the Voting Rights Act. So I'll stop. I don't believe I heard enough of the conversation to be informative in any other way, but this is interesting. Okay.
And sister, I'm going to turn it back over to you. I do think, and I want to say this, I know these are Muslim program, and I know, and I get it, I understand. And so we can take it from that end. But there are laws that affect us in this country. And I brought these up for a reason. I will talk about it later. But there are Muslims who take themselves out of I'm going to mute you, sister. I'm getting some feedback, Sister Mahasan. There are people who take themselves out of our, what do you call this, political system, thinking that everyone agrees with the obligation to abide by God's laws. And we can see right now that's not happening. You can look at Gaza, Yemen, Sudan, Congo, all of it, right? You can look at it, and the obligation to establish a thriving Muslim community may be incumbent upon us, but it's not incumbent upon everyone else, because everyone else has their own. So I like those, though I like them, but I don't disagree with them. I'm just asking, not we as just Muslims, I mean we as a society. So I leave it there, Sister Amatullah. Back to you.
I was referring to something else, and that's in the Constitution, where it talks about the inalienable rights, those God-given rights. So I'll stop right there.
Okay, so that's under an amendment. And so, that's actually in the preamble of the Constitution rather than the Bill of Rights. Yeah.
Right.
Okay. Thank you for the clarification.
Technically, that's in the Declaration. That's in the Declaration of Independence. Second paragraph.
Yeah.
That's before the Constitution was written, actually.
Yes.
Right.
All right.
Right. But it's contextual.
All right, madam.
That's why I love this show. Alhamdulillah.
Why do you love the show, Brother Ismail?
Y'all are talking my language. I love it.
Oh, okay. All right.
Thank you, sir.
Well, I'm glad you said talking our language, because I was having thoughts yesterday and this morning, and my apologies for throwing that responsibility on you, Cheryl, past the icebreaker, but I just had a unplanned, unforeseen situation that occurred here. But everything is okay. Um,
Yeah.
I have been thinking about with the show or with anything that I host with the show, whether or not the language or the ideas are more geared towards people who are already engaged, which is fine, but our objective too is to also get those who are not engaged to become engaged. And so, I'm not talking for Cheryl and Fleming on this, should I gear my programs that I host more towards the language and the level maybe of engagement of our audience, of those who participate with us. So I'm glad, Brother Ishmael, at least we have a dedicated participant in the program who we are meeting your needs, and I think that's important for us to continue with that in mind, to meet not only just the mission we've set for ourselves, but also the needs of the people who participate in the program, because you are valuable. And it's interesting. Um, Cheryl and I, we didn't talk about how I was going to approach some of the topics, which I probably won't get time to go over, because it's already 10:52. But I had made a little, I don't know whether it was chat or Claude, one of those AI things I quickly try to use as a research tool to get an idea. This is what I asked it for: a list of U.S. legislation that directly addresses foreign policy and war crimes, including laws that authorize or restrict the use of force, regulate foreign aid, impose sanctions, or enforce international humanitarian law. So it did give me I 13. I got 13 specific laws. And Cheryl, you opened up, your breaker was on laws. So laws that we cannot live without. So although these refer, to foreign policy, I do think that these laws, it's good for us, especially now we're hearing more reference to some of the laws because of executive orders that the current administration is seeking
Mm-hmm.
to put out there to expand the reach of the president.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I'll just go over this list and um, maybe some of the purposes or key features of these. The War Powers Resolution of 1973, which is 50 USC, US Code, sections 1541 to 1548. And the purpose, it limits the president's power to commit U.S. forces to armed conflict without congressional approval. The
Mm-hmm.
key features of that requires the president to notify Congress within 48 hours of military deployment, limits military engagement to 60 days plus a 30-day withdrawal period without congressional authorization. Okay, now that one, all right, I'll put a little, let's make this a little pop quiz. Can anyone see how that legislation may have um, come into play within the last 60 days? You can raise your hand. How about that? Okay, Fleming, you didn't raise your hand, but you laughed. So since because you made a noise in the classroom, you're going to have to answer the question.
Stay on mute, brother.
I know you were strict in your
Okay.
class, so we're going to do that.
Brother,
Oh,
stay on
man.
mute. Stay on mute.
Stay,
Stay on
stay
mute.
on mute. Oh, thank you, sister. I
So the
forgot who
War
was in
Powers
charge.
Resolution. War Powers Resolution. First of all, does everyone understand what I'm asking you to take?
Repeat it one more, please. One
Okay.
more for you. Student in the back of the classroom
The
here.
student in the back of the classroom causing chaos. War Powers Resolution of 1973.
Mm-hmm.
73, okay? That's 50 USC, sections 1541 to 1548, if people want to look it up. The purpose, as this tool said, it limits the president's power to commit U.S. forces to armed conflict without congressional approval. Key features: requires the president to notify Congress within 48 hours of military deployment. Limits military engagement to 60 days, plus a 30-day withdrawal period without congressional authorization.
Yes.
So in the last
Okay.
90 days, has this law come into play in anything that the current administration may have done?
The direct answer is absolutely. The attack on the government, excuse me, of Iran at the behest of the Israeli government to bomb so-called threat of building nuclear bombs is a prime example because that was considered an attack on a sovereign country. And of course, the history behind that piece of legislation was the Vietnam War.
Right.
And that kind of entanglement that we got involved in that cost 55,000 American lives to be lost plus. But the most recent one, of course, was that assault like that. And it should be uh, consulted with Congress because indeed it's subjecting American lives long term. If that exploded in another direction, we still be battling in that situation. And indirectly, we still are through the Israelis' insanity, the way they're handling the situation from Hamas. And I'll stop there. I'll let someone else make a contribution. I'm alive again now. I'm not no longer in the back of the classroom. I'm full
Well,
attendance to my teacher here.
okay.
Let's share some answers.
Okay, thank you.
Assalamu alaikum.
Michael, hold on, Mahassan. Michael Hameen, you have your hand up, and then I'll go to you, Mahassan. Go ahead,
Yeah,
Michael.
yes, I thank you. The I'm hearing feedback. Somebody's mic is open and it's causing feedback. Uh,
Okay,
um, uh, the mindset of this administration to disrespect laws, to nullify laws, to disrespect the republic structure of our government. Uh, the disrespect of laws is not new to us as African Americans. You know, we've come through that in terms of the mindset of there are no laws that that are that there's an obligation to be respected in terms of the African American community. You know, we can we can we can disrespect the laws when it comes to them. It's the same with this idea of the president getting us into wars without the obligation of going to the Congress. Uh, we see this dismantling mindset of this administration to dismantle the governmental offices and so forth. Uh, and there's no serious outcry, a real serious outcry, in my opinion, or strategies to have us in a suitable survival mode when it comes to what this president is doing. Uh, the disrespect of the War Powers Act is a very small portion of what we see happening with this present administration. And I'll stop there.
thank you. Okay, Mahassan, you wanted to say something? Let me see. Are you on mute, Mahassan, Sister Mahassan? Oh, I don't
Can
see.
you hear me?
Yes, now I can hear you. Go right
Oh,
ahead.
okay. Okay, thank you. I think that, I'll follow up on what Brother Michael has said because the response that I initially had was that there's been established a culture of disrespect of the laws, so that without following the established rules, there's a spirit that you can, as an individual, decide whether it meets your needs or not. And it amounts to what I consider a flaunting of the ethical procedures that protect our laws. On the back of Imam Muhammad's tafsir book, Thoughts Attaining the Ethical Society, he says that they have ethics committees to watch over the thinking of the leaders in government that will affect their performance and also affect the nature of our society. Yes, that's the one. I see you holding it up. So if they do not respect the rules of ethics on them, you don't just plan and write laws and organize activities, the 2025 project, with your brain. You do it also with the consideration of moral obligations on you. Then, when you have thinkers respecting that, you're going to have an ethical society. So, no one talks much about ethics, the concept of ethics in relationship to society. Today, we find people like Jasmine Crockett, because of her law background, she brings that concept in as she fights for the cause of an ethical society. And that's what I see her doing. So I'll stop right there and see what you all have to say.
Okay.
Allah, Allahu Akbar.
Alhamdulillah, Allahu Akbar. So it seems like Fleming, like even though you're in the back of the classroom and you're disruptive, that people agree um, with your assessment of violation of the War Powers Resolution by the current administration. Now, there is a possibility also because, let me make this one thing. It says it requires the president to notify Congress within 48 hours of military deployment. After the whole bombing situation was over, later it came out that he met with some of the Republican congressmen, not with the Democrats. And so he did not follow the provisions of the law, the features of the law.
Right.
Also, we should remember that the Supreme Court gave presidential immunity prior to his taking this
That's
action.
right.
So
That's
perhaps that encouraged him to feel that he was covered with whatever way that he chose to act. Now,
They approve his unethical inclination.
yes, that's true. That is so true. Okay, now I'm just going to do maybe the first four because we definitely not going to have time. Well, are you saying something, Cheryl? Let me get everybody
Let me
on.
say this. Let me
Go
say
ahead.
this, and I'm gonna say because I'm gonna differ a little bit. I agree with Brother Fleming, but I'm gonna differ a little bit with the dialogue. We do not live in a Muslim country. We do not live in a Muslim country. Say it again. We do not live in a Muslim country. We're Muslims living in this country. So I look at our laws and our bills and our acts and things from that lens. And so while I agree that we should be acting with a certain amount of ethics and morality, as being an elected public official, that happens at every level. It's not just at the presidential level. And but whose definition of morality, whose definition of ethics is the key? Because what we're seeing is that there is a substantial pushback over that definition, the definition of hostilities, the definition of, does the president have inherent authority under Article 2 of the Constitution as the commander in chief, right? Under the article, he has certain authorities that he can do as the commander in chief to deploy troops in certain situations, even without explicit congressional authorization. And it's very important that we recognize that. Now, I don't agree with him, but it doesn't change. My agreement or disagreement does not change the way the Constitution is written. And the Constitution it is vague when it says he must, I say he because we've never had anybody who wasn't a he, but he says that, they must give Congress a report within the 48 hours. And Congress is the one who authorizes it, but he doesn't say the majority of Congress. He doesn't say you got to work with both parties. It just says Congress blankly.
So
And
are we to
so
understand that?
hold on, Sister Master, hold on.
No crosstalk, okay?
Excuse
Yeah.
me,
Just
excuse me,
raise your
brother,
hand and
Sister
make a comment.
Martha. Excuse me.
So my take on this is from that aspect, right? The War Powers Act, and Brother Fleming, I invite you to respond to this. But the War Powers Act has always been really contested legally, and you have a theory and you have practice, and it's always been contested. I mean, okay, when it was put into action, I was probably running around in footy pajamas, but I don't know. I just know that it ain't
1973.
so I know I was. So the whole presidential powers and uh, what's the president can do without the consent of Congress, it's always this tug and pull. And it wasn't just this administration. It was both the 45, 47, but it was also under President Biden, under President Obama, under both Bushes, under Reagan, under Carter. This has been going on for many, many decades, my lifetime. And so I think that when trying to say that if the president violated the War Powers Act, is hard to do because there's different interpretations of what that act provides, and it's very, very nuanced. I think he violated higher acts than just the War Powers Act. But then again, like I say, is my opinion. Based on the law, I'm looking at the letter of the law and the way it is written. Every one of these presidents, Biden back when they sent military weapons and took actions against Iran. He used this, all of it. And so I think that it's important that we look at it in full context based on the laws of this land. Our particular laws is, okay, that's different as Muslims. You can't impose that on everyone. It doesn't work. Brother Fleming, I just wanted you to jump
Let me
in on
make
the other part.
two 30-second comments. So we might water down one 30-second response. The room for independent thinking on the president's part is simply based on emergency threats to the country. When there's an emergency threat to the country, he has an obligation to respond to defend the country and then inform what's going on. That's another whole discussion we can get into, but that applies to every president going back to Lincoln. So that concept, is this a threat that we can define will harm the average citizen in America? Are we really under attack, et cetera? So that's a big leeway. And even the War Powers Act that came about, that was debated and debated back and forth because of the immense loss of life in the Vietnam War. And during that time, 18-year-olds finally were given a chance to vote for the very first time. And an amendment was added because so many of them were losing their lives. So every law is based on certain circumstances, political, economic, and social events that impact the support for that specific law. For the War Powers Act specifically, the biggest leeway he has is in response to a threat to the American citizenry. If you think back to the situation with George Bush when he said, they don't hear us now, but they'll hear us eventually, tearing down these buildings when he was in New York after the attack on 9/11. And the way he responded to that, it was an immediate response, yes, because the country was on attack. I'm just put that in parentheses, okay? Just one example going forward. There's a lot we can discuss on the War Powers Act, I would say this in conclusion, though. If we have not taken a close examination of the Medina Charter and those articles and how they
Mhm.
directly impact our articles of incorporation, pardon me, our Bill of Rights, all 10 of them are
Mhm.
supported to a great degree in the Medina Charter, including
Mhm.
freedom of religion. So for
That's
those that
right.
have an interest in really the origin of these articles and how this Constitution was created, et cetera, take the time on your own time, hopefully, and we can discuss this later on. How has the Medina Charter influenced the foundational documents of freedom that we assume we have in America today?
That's
And I'll
right.
stop there.
Allahu Akbar.
I'm good.
Mhm.
Okay. Mahassan, I think that you are not muting yourself
Oh,
until,
I'm
until
sorry.
we recognize. That's okay. First,
Mhm.
I have Michael, then I have Mahassan with their hands up. Michael,
Yes, yes, I understand the argument or the position that this is not a Muslim country, but Brother Fleming has added support to my thinking in terms of how this country has been established. And there's an obligation on Muslims to use our Islamic standards of ethics and community focus to make this country better. Because if it is undermined and dismantled, we're going to suffer just like other citizens are going to suffer. So I'm saying there's an obligation for the standards of serving God's will and plan, for establishing. We have the freedom to establish community life and community governance, and by doing so, it presents a three dimensional focus that can give strength to those citizens, Christians and others, uh, to really fight for maintaining the republic and improving upon it. We're the only government in the world, I believe, that has a framework that says that we can change the government if the
That's right.
majority of this if the majority of the citizens are in agreement without any kind of bloodshed or war. So it's a phenomenal situation that we're in, and we're obligated, in my opinion, to do more in terms of better organizing and structuring ourselves as Muslims in order to help this country survive. Thank you.
thank you, Michael. Mahassan,
Yes.
you put
Seem to
yourself
be
on.
really um thank you. We seem to be really on the same page. Can you hear me, Sister
Yes, we
Matala?
got it. We got it.
Okay. We seem to be really in thinking on the same page, because I'm drawn back to what happened, uh, how former President Johnson left office in terms of disgrace, because when he reviewed his thinking and activities on the Vietnam War, he had heinous regrets. And I'll use that. I saw a documentary where he was just livid. He was just dissatisfied with his own thinking and the actions that were promoted and supported in the government. The ability. So ethics is something. The ethical society, which is the destiny, the goal for the good people of America. And it was the mission of Imam W.D. Muhammad to promote that. You know, he said that in this age of science and technology, more and more of us humans are accepting that the earth mothered all of us. And by and large, we humans are more good than bad. So, hence, with our different colors, facial features, languages, political ideas, and religions, we all have the same birthrights. We have the right to share space here, and we have the right to dream of a better existence. That is to say, each member community has a right to its own plans, to the future of its own dreams. And since I'm Muslim, Sister Cheryl, I have a right to that, an expression of that in the society. So Imam Muhammad said, and I'll finish, what lights the way for each of us to dream, to plan, and to work out a better future for ourselves here is a present and growing willingness among ethnic groups to tolerate each and to give equal recognition and respect to each other. We're not seeing that nowadays. The more we move to get acquainted with each other, to know more about what we separately live for and what we will die for, the more we grow to like what is admirable in all of us, to invite and welcome contributions of excellence from each of us into our worlds, the brighter the future will be for all of us. And I'll stop right there.
Sister Cheryl.
Thank you. I'm gonna need me a couple of them Fleming 30 seconds.
Oh boy. Okay.
Yeah, I'm gonna need me a couple of them. Just two. Uh and I want to say this because I think that is important to understand from the discussion aspect to what I say. I didn't say anything about Muslims not being Muslims, Muslims not striving in assisting others to be better people. My issue is with the definition of what is better. It doesn't matter that we're Muslims if we don't take the steps to speak to non-Muslims to adhere to whatever this definition of ethics and good moral conduct is, because we don't control this country. And there's too many Muslims that I've seen. I can't speak for anybody else or anybody else's experience. Speak for mine. It's too many Muslims who take the easy way out, is what I call it. This program is about political engagement. And the kind of political engagement that's necessary is, you want to change the laws, you want to change the way the country is heading, we have to be involved in the action. And without being involved in the action, we're still going to be outsiders looking in and talking. So when we can get people who are willing to support, train, and encourage, and then further support and monitor the activities of Muslims in positions of influence and power, then we can talk about that. But we're not doing that. And it doesn't have to necessarily be a Muslim. I would go back and say a God-fearing person, a believer, right? My mother's not a Muslim, but my mother's a believer. And so there's ways that we can do this, but simply saying, well, we have to because we're Muslim, it doesn't work. This is why we have young people who are disappearing from the masjid. You can't mandate. There's no mandate. There's no law that's mandating civility or decency or even what we're calling ethical or moral behavior, because it's difficult to define. Now, the laws prevent you from doing certain things, and I'm going to repeat it one last time before I mute myself, sister. The concept that everything which is not forbidden is allowed is what the president is acting off of. This is why I say something to Brother Fleming. That's what he's acting off of. That's what the administration is acting off of. This is what this Congress, and you can call it corrupt, you can call it anything you want. We can keep complaining about it, or we can do something about it.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
everything is not forbidden in law, not as Muslims, not as Christians, not as Jews, not as Sikh, not as Hindu or Buddhist. In the legal maxim says that you can do almost any action unless there is a law against it. And so if we're not in the rooms of power making the laws or repealing them or doing whatever, again, what are we talking about? And I get it that I'm not here to be preached at. So if you about to preach at me, don't do that. Because I know my dean, I know my faith, and I don't need anybody telling me what they're supposed to be. But this show is trying to get enough people to be engaged politically and civically so that we can make a difference. And that difference is not trying to impose on people who are who are and not even listening to Muslims. What you got to do with the Muslim way. It's not what we're supposed to be about. And that's why we keep losing people. At some point, you have to speak to people who disagree with you or differ from you so that you can know, what do I need to do different? Because we got to do something different. What happened in that last election is very clear that there's a disconnect. And what's happening right now in American society and all over the world, again, there's a disconnect. And we can't get it by, I call it Peter Pan thinking. Wish I may and wish I might. It doesn't work that way. We got, there's some concrete actions we need to have in place. I don't even see a Muslim plan, right? We have your Jewish plan, your Black plan. We need our own plan on how we're going to be together. And it doesn't happen simply because we say it should. Brother Fleming, I'm gonna throw it to you, toss it to you. I heard all of you, so I
Yeah,
didn't want to
no,
know.
we're
I
not
want you to know I
tossing,
heard you.
we're not tossing it to Fleming. We're gonna move on. I see your hand,
Uh-oh.
Michael, and I have to. We can come back to this, but I'm
Thank
going to
you.
move on
Thank you.
Okay.
to look at. I have three more that I want to really touch on. Now, so Michael and Mahassan, you can put your hand down because I'm going to ask people to listen to this one and see if you think it's relevant with any actions that the current administration has taken. So the next one is the Foreign Assistance Act of 1961, 22 USC, Section 2151, etc. The purpose, it governs U.S. foreign aid programs and includes provisions related to human rights and war crimes. The relevant provisions are Section 116, prohibits assistance to countries committing gross violations of human rights, and Section 502B requires the State Department to report annually on human rights practices. So the question is, do we see this piece of legislation being impacted by any action, executive orders, or actions taken by the current administration, meaning the executive branch and also cabinet members? If you have a thought on this Foreign Assistance Act, you can raise your hand and we'll acknowledge your comment. No hands. Okay.
Yeah, assalamu alaikum.
Now,
Walaikum assalam.
Mahassan, you are a teacher, and I know that you have your students to follow instructions. Maybe you didn't know how to raise your hand if you're on your phone, especially. But I will acknowledge your comment. Go right ahead.
Thank you. Yeah, 45 years of being a teacher and very interested in children thinking and responding to the train of discussion. So I may not, it is not my intention to violate any rules by not raising my hand. I simply was eager to respond to you and heard the silence in between.
Okay.
So when you talk about human rights, right? My mother used to have a saying, the pot can't call the kettle black, right? So we have one of the things, especially after the issue with George Floyd, there was a worldwide reaction to the injustice of his death and the way that it came about. And America was blanketly accused of violating human rights, right? Yet we have a section here where we can decide not to give foreign assistance. This is a Foreign Assistance Act of 1921 to countries who are
1961.
guilty,
1961.
excuse me, 1961, who are accused of violating human rights in their country. So the pot can't, we're the pot in that because we've certainly, as things have evolved in our country, guilty of violating human rights. the pot can't call the kettle black. We can't point the finger at others that we may perceive and interpret as violating that when we are not dealing domestically with issues and accusations of the same comport. I'll stop right there.
So, well, no, let me ask you a follow-up question to what you're saying.
Sure.
So, are you saying that we are not obligated to follow this legislation, which we have enacted because we violate human rights ourselves?
No, let's switch that question around. Are we acknowledging that we are guilty, our country, our government, of violating human rights of its citizens while we look and uh, uh, try to appear in judgment against those on the outer realms of the globe who might be doing the same thing? Can we see? My mother used to also have a phrase. She said, "You can't see the mote in somebody else's eye until you see it in yours." So this is my question. Maybe we're always concerned because of our constitutional statement at pointing the finger without looking within. I'll stop right there.
Okay. I think that, yes, we need internal reflection and we need to have, we need to be fair in our assessment of ourselves and other nations. But this legislation, it prohibits assistance to countries committing gross violations of human rights. It's saying that we, regardless of what we are doing, we can't assist countries committing gross violations of human rights. And it requires the State Department to report annually on human rights practices. Brother Fleming, your hand is up, and then Michael.
Yes, assalamu alaikum. I try to use 15 seconds instead of 30. But if you look at 1961 and that era of history and what was going on internationally, countries in Africa, where some of them were just gaining their independence, there was a lot of efforts to sort of establish sovereignty among colonized countries. So America in 61 was going through something very similar with the onslaught of the birth of the civil rights movement, et cetera. But the key word in that law is human rights, the key phrase. And so if you can't define a human right violation, then you can sort of escape over that. But that's the key of the whole thing. And in current history, the only country, unfortunately, that has challenged the inhumane treatment of the people in Gaza has been South Africa, because they consider that a violation of human rights. But defining what are human rights is the key. Now, we got an administration now who don't even want to support DEI. Forget about human rights. They can't even get to the associated rights, which is an appreciation of diversity, an appreciation of equality and equity, et cetera. So we can't look for this administration for anything like that. And I am with this. I speak a lot at different occasions. I was at a program with about 50 different ministers. They asked me to speak, give a workshop from ACGG. And an old sister, no, let me say senior sister, she stood up and said, "No, Salamane, how can a person with 34 felonies proven guilty become president, and my grandson can't get a job with one felony?" And I said, it all boils down, sis, to a vote. All these people voted for him. That's why he's president. But we can do something else when it's our turn if we don't forget. Don't forget what is happening, what is happening to you as a result of the decisions made from these policies. And keep in mind, executive orders are not laws. It's a blind thing that he used to pass all these executive laws, executive orders, because they came straight from the Project 2025. That was a whole strategy to make people concentrate on that when the next president can very easily change all of that. But executive order suggests that. Now think back for our community, Abraham Lincoln passed the executive order, right? The Emancipation Proclamation. It was a war act. It didn't become legal until the 13th Amendment was added to the Constitution. So just keep that reference. It's just a switch and bait kind of thing he's doing with the minds of people who are not familiar with the foundational principle of this country. It's just executive orders, period. I'll stop there for the sake of time because I used up my 5 minutes already. 5 seconds, 15 seconds, was
See, you couldn't even get it straight. You couldn't even get it straight.
it?
Brother Michael.
All right.
Yeah, can I use your clock, Fleming?
I think he has
Yes.
one of those cracked fan clocks.
Oh
Okay,
man.
I'm gonna try to be as succinct as I can and be brief because I'm aware that brevity oftentimes helps to punctuate the points. So this idea of human rights, we've had administrators, the presidents, admit that they have supported, with the aid of the CIA, assassinations and manipulations of sovereign governments in Africa and in other places. You know, one in particular, Iran. I think it was President Eisenhower, or one of the presidents, admitted to the the assassination of a sovereign leader who was duly elected by his public. Mossadegh was assassinated, and they put in the Shah, which was very disruptive for the Iranian people. So we've got a history, abroad as well as in this country, of America the ugly, in terms of disrespecting treaties, disrespecting laws. But we also have America the beautiful, that we find challenging voices of challenging that disrespect, challenging that disrespect, and holding us to a higher standard. So I'll stop there.
Okay, thank you. I do want to make one comment about your comment, Brother Michael. I'm glad that you gave us that historical example of the situation in Iran, because I would venture to say that more than 50% of the American population has no history of that background leading to the Shah, his regime of torture and terror on the Iranian people, and then the revolt that
Yes.
that promoted, that caused. So thank you for that historical context. And this particular legislation is 64 years old. Um, and I wanted to relate it also to, we saw the Secretary of State after the president's executive order, we saw the Secretary of State crumble in terms of the soft aid that has been given to serve as more of a mitigation or amelioration of the horrible or that ugly side of our foreign policy by offering foreign aid and assistance to those nations that needed people who may have been suffering from drought or um, medical disasters, with the disbanding of USAID, which I'm talking about Marco Rubio, the current Secretary of State, was a strong advocate for when he was in the Senate. And rather than to stand up for the good work that agency was doing, crumbled under the executive action. But I see that Sister Cheryl has her hand up, and then Brother Kareem. So I'll acknowledge you before going on to the next one.
Brother
And
Kareem was in front of me. He
Brother
was in front of
Kareem,
me. He
yes.
was in front of me.
Okay, Brother Kareem. Brother Kareem, unmute yourself, please.
Yes, alhamdulillah, praise to Allah. The important subject we are discussing here. I'm looking for solutions, and we should look forward to the midterm elections. I'm encouraging my family and everyone that I come in contact with to vote in the midterm elections. The higher number of congressmen from a particular party that wins that majority, then they control the Congress and the spending and legislation. So I'm encouraging everyone to do not ignore the midterm elections, go out and vote, and we can turn this thing around. And as an ethnic group, we are not the only ones that are thinking like that. The majority of the citizens of this country are thinking like that, most definitely. But I don't want us to return back to what we call normal. We must improve on the system. There are flaws in it, but we don't want to just return back to normal. We want to improve on this system of government. I'll stop right there, and I encourage all of us to encourage citizens to vote in the midterm elections. Thank you. I love you, Brother Fleming. And Sister Sadu and Sister Sabrie. Praise be to Allah. Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum assalam.
Walaikum assalam.
Thank you for the love, and love back to you, Brother Kareem.
Yes.
So now we have Sister Cheryl.
Yeah, so I want to go back to your question, right? And your question was, do we see this administration being impacted by actions? Do we see this legislation, the Foreign Assistance Act of 1961, do we see this legislation being impacted by actions such as executive orders or taken by a branch of government, executive or legislative or judicial, violating this act, right? And I know I'm going to make some of you upset, but this is my role is my agitator. So there's a couple things. There's some action that
we got this recorded now, and it's going out over YouTube, and you're finally admitting it. Go right ahead, honorable agitator.
I know, honorable agitator today. It might lose my title. Okay, so when they took action against USAID, right? Suspended a whole lot of aid programs throughout the country. But at the same time, they're dissolving USAID. For those who do not know, it's a program established here in the United States that provides needed assistance to international organizations that help countries. This is not, it's United States Agency for International Development, right? I believe that's what it's called.
Yes.
So, I think that because USAID provides humanitarian aid, development assistance, disaster relief, development assistance usually follows some type of disaster relief or something like that. You could make a case that the U.S. is violating it from that standpoint. I know what everyone has talked about, and even what Sister Mason said about calling the kettle black. But I tend to look at it from the other side, right? In accordance with your question, sister, are we violating it by any actions? And I think the actions for dissolving USAID, AID, when you know that there are vast swaths of people and many countries that rely upon U.S. assistance, whether that's food assistance, it's disaster relief, as we spoke about, or development, is really where I look at it from that lens. Are we not only providing, but withholding, right? If we are withholding because of my own legislative background, I always look at if I take an action, what happens? If I fail to take an action, what happens? And so, yes, could we be violating the Foreign Assistance Acts if we took certain actions? Probably. It's a big legal, you gotta look at it from a legal lens. But are we violating it by not taking certain actions? Remember, China is the biggest, Brother Fleming, this is what I was thinking when you were talking, but China is one of the countries that is often cited for reason to withhold foreign assistance because of their human rights programs. Um, but there was one part of that act, and I was hoping, and I see Sister House and Brother Michael Amin, but you or Brother Fleming probably know more about this. I just know it from an academic standpoint. But part of this, Foreign Assistance Act was the Leahy Law. Wasn't that Patrick Leahy?
No, yeah, Patrick Leahy, yes.
Yeah, but the Leahy Law says that you can't give funds for foreign secret forces that are committing the Human Rights Act, the human rights violations, which is an underpinning of that, because we have been, there has been violations to that, giving aid to foreign security forces or foreign, United States set up the Houthis and Hamas had a part in that. So I look at it from that aspect. So I just wanted to know if you guys would talk about the Leahy Act before.
I have that next on
the Leahy Law. The Leahy Law.
Leahy Law. I have that next on my list.
Okay. Well, see, I must be reading your notes because we are like vibing today. I must have had some secret something. I'm like stealing all your thunder.
Yeah, that was it's good. As long as we get the information out there, that is what my goal is. Get the information out there. I think we all have to, whether we are in public office or haven't been in public office, we have to consider, I'll go to what Brother Kareem said. All right, yes, we have to participate in the midterms, but I don't want to substitute one bad guy with another bad guy simply because I don't know where they stand on certain issues. And I think that the foreign policy is impacting us more and more every day, and more people are becoming attuned to, hey, what we're doing outside of the country is boomeranging back on us in the country. And so we need to have, and because civics has just been, taken out of the middle and high school curriculum, and if someone doesn't take maybe political science in their GE segment of the higher education in the college or university, the idea of these laws that might affect foreign policy are not at the forefront or even maybe the middle part of the person's brain. And so they have more concern about, well, do I violate the speed limit than they do, well, is my country violating laws that we have on the books that affect us in the world and cause people to look at us a certain way in the world? And we don't have any idea, well, why? You have politicians that say, well, they hate us. They hate our culture and, and all of this. Okay, well, are they justified in hating you? I mean, have you assassinated their duly elected leaders year after year, after decade after decade after decade? So this is good. It's good conversation, and I'm going to.
Let me say one thing to that, just really quick.
Okay.
I agree with you. I agree with Brother Hamid, and I just want to say that even though, and Brother Fleming, thank you for reminding us that civics is required in North Carolina high schools. But I want to remind you that they're rewriting the books so that history is rewritten. So if we're just relying on the same people who are perpetuating injustices to teach justice, it seems a little wicked to me. That seems a little flawed. I think that programs like this, programs like some of the other programs on, on AM360, but programs that focus on, I'm going to say, telling the truth, call a thing a thing. However, at the end of the day, what's the solution? Because we can complain all day long. But if we continue to sit out or say, what's the worst that could happen? You're experiencing it right now. You're experiencing it right now. Because a lot of people went through the last elections, if we're being honest with ourselves, we got through. And I heard this. I heard this from the biggest Muslim organizations in the country. When we got through the first administration, we'll get through this one. Okay, but you're not going to get through unscathed. You're not going to get through without, people not only losing their rights, but losing their lives. And so I think that sometimes what we can do and what we're doing right now is also talking about what are the unintended consequences of taking action A, B, or C, or not taking any action at all. Because you can't, when it comes to justice and human rights and decency, there's no sitting on the fence. But a lot of times, or sitting out either. And so I don't think there's any room for sitting out or sitting on the fence if we are going to have any type of influence or say in remaking this society the way in which it benefits all people, all people. And so it's todo for me.
Okay. And I would also say with the Foreign Assistance Act, I'll have to check to see if this comes under it. But besides, if we look at the genocidal government of Israel, um, okay, the Leahy laws will deal with that in terms of the military thing. But there are also, and I have to find out, there are also assistance plans that we give to Israel in um, the social in the social realm too. So I'm going to look further into that. We shouldn't be giving them aid in those social areas as well as the military area. Okay, Michael and Mahassan, your hand is up. I'm going to limit both of you to 1 minute because we're at 11:47.
Assalamu alaikum. Yeah, we
Alaikum
need
assalam.
we need a different paradigm. Um, the longer a public official is in office, the longer that they can get the support from those people that they align themselves with for the bad uh, representation, like supporting what's going on over in Israel. Excuse me. So let's why not approach a rubber meet the road type of a approach to put people in, and if we see through studying them that they're not responding as we need them to respond to the common human rights and other types of issues, vote them out before they get a foothold. And one brother that I met in Birmingham, he uh, he voted when the Nation of Islam did not vote, and he saw that he was free to vote, even though the leader said we shouldn't vote. Elijah Muhammad said we shouldn't vote. He said, "Brother, I voted, and I voted with the mind that the lesser of the two evils, which one could hurt me the least." And I think we need to change this paradigm, stop looking for perfection, and identify, those pragmatic issues of approaching strategies. And the same way with our community, Muslim communities. The children are not there. Well, what do we do to get them back? Maybe they shouldn't come back because of the way we're structured. We don't have a program. So what if the larger Muslim communities are not seeing this political process correctly? We have leadership that have given us insights to see it correctly. So let's just go with what we have and better structure ourselves.
Thank you, Brother Michael. Mahasa, Mahasa, you're on mute.
Assalamu alaikum. Was that 1 minute? Because I'm kind
Yeah,
of
that's a
gauging
lot.
the length of what I was saying. I want to stay
I,
up
I,
full.
I'm, I'm
Okay,
using Fleming. I'm using Fleming's
I
clock.
can, I can always put, I can always put the timer
That
on. I can
that's
put
good.
the timer
Okay,
on.
and I'll try to use yours, Michael, and be respectful. But one thing I want to encourage is inviting the expressions that make sense. We're sense makers. Ultimately, that's what my journey is in Al Islam, is to make better and better logic and sense out of the chaos that we're experiencing in the world. And I hate to have it sound so urgent, but we are living in an urgent time. And I think it was Malcolm X who repeated that a people devoid of historical memory are doomed to relive it. You know, and Imam Muhammad ended up his discussion on attaining that ethical society by identifying three stages. One is spiritual integrity, two, contextual integrity, and the last stage is a global ethical society based on procedural integrity. That's where we are now. We're defining that. And Sister Cheryl, I really appreciate your your outlook, and recognition. But one thing I'm looking for as a senior, and as a grandmother and whatnot, is the kind of change that will establish our and confirm our capacity to make change. Things are going along now. Look at the USAID program, right? International development aid that has been used in many cases as a cover up or a meddling and manipulation tool in other societies. And we have to recognize and own that as a nation, that due to the voting patterns, we've allowed those who we have elected to deviate from what has been our fundamental source and good lead. So I will constantly, you know, argue this point of contextual integrity, especially since his absence, because we want to see communities of people who will make use of the opportunities that are here in America, who cooperate humanely with each other for excellence and the progress of the whole. And if that sounds like a religiosity, Cheryl, it'll have to stand, because this is the day we prayed for. That's the way we work. And this is the purpose for which we were created, and I dare say are existing here on this earth. And I'll stop right there.
Okay, thank you. Um, yeah. Okay. So I do have a comment. It's good for us to have varying opinions and perspectives, and that is a characteristic of Shura, that we don't have just groupthink, we have diversity of thought too. And inshallah, in the exchange of those diversity of thoughts, we can bring it down to a common place where we can have agreement, inshallah. The next one on my list was the Leahy laws, codified in 22 USC and section 2378D, for those who are making note, and 10 USC section 362. The purpose of the Leahy laws prohibits U.S. military assistance to foreign military units that commit gross violations of Human Rights. Two versions of this. The State Department Leahy Law 22 USC 237 8D applies to state funded assistance. And Defense Department Leahy Law 10 USC Section 362 applies to Pentagon funded training and equipment. So, any comments on the Leahy Law? Is Congress respecting this legislation? Is the executive branch respecting this legislation? Where do we stand today with the Leahy laws?
We'll take 10 seconds. Inshallah. 10
Inshallah.
seconds, 10 seconds, inshallah. I want to identify the source of a lot of these human rights issues. We don't give her enough respect, I don't think, and that is former First Lady Eleanor Roosevelt. If you read the preamble to the United Nations Charter, a lot of these issues related to human rights are indicated there. And a lot of these other political leaders glean off of that without giving her due credit. I want to say that first. But there's two things going here. We got the letter of the law, and we have the spirit of the law. Now, the spirit of the law is really going to be very, very specific in identifying what are human rights. And once you allow the general public to sort of dismiss people's human rights, that means the right to food, shelter, education, etc., then you become insensitive to their needs. And that happens over and over again. So we have to always hold up the banner. Human rights are God-given rights. And I think Imam Muhammad was very clear in the book Al-Islam and American Democracy, when he very specifically stated that the lifeline of this whole country is based on the premise that we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, endowed by their creator with certain inalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That's a fundamental gift that every human being should be born with. When there's a violation, it should be addressed. But the spirit of enforcing that is waned so much now. It is almost impossible to even hear the word human rights in the media. We're discussing it, and it should be discussed, but how often do you hear the expression human rights in the general media? It's very rarely mentioned or referred to. And I'll end with this. We have to hold these people accountable ourselves. We know what the law says. We don't see it being enforced. And there's so many examples of that one not being enforced that it would take the whole program just to identify them, because it's been not enforced over and over and over again. And I think in terms of solutions, when we have these meetings with some of these elected officials, take with you an agenda with a platform and ask them to support your specific agenda of values you hold dear. If they don't support them, then act accordingly. Don't support them. But we need to go into that arena with a specific platform of our own, summarizing our important needs and concerns, and see if they will make a position or take a position to support them. If they don't, then we know what we can do. We can vote them out of office. But keep those two things in mind in terms of solutions. Form forums to bring these people to the community to answer questions based on your own identifiable platform that represents your values as a community. And then hold them accountable. We got to know the law of this land, the founding fathers' law, all those freedom documents. We got to be familiar with them. And too often people are not familiar with them, and so they're bamboozled, to use the word of Malcolm, and they're tricked. But you got to have a foundational knowledge base. What's in those freedom documents that we're all entitled to? And I'll end. I've used my 15 seconds up. Inshallah, I didn't violate it too much this afternoon.
Well, you said you were going to use 10, and by the end of your, well, you won't say how many minutes, you said 15. So we had to keep it. And this is what we mean about these characteristics of politicians. You got to watch them all the way through.
You got to watch them all the way through. Can I add something? Can I add something, sister?
Go right in.
It's interesting that you brought up Roosevelt, Brother Fleming. I'm working on a committee here to do the Roosevelt Award, right? And many people here had not known, even though they know President Roosevelt and Eleanor Roosevelt, they didn't really know their impact on issues. And when I was doing my research, what I found interesting was that he gave that very famous speech, the Four Freedoms speech, on January 6th, January 6th, 41. And then, here you fast forward a whole century, and January 6th has a different meaning. But
Yes.
so those four freedoms, just for the record, is freedom of speech and expression, freedom of worship, freedom from want, and freedom from fear. And so when we talk about these laws, whether it's WPA, the Work Powers Act, the Foreign Assistance Act, or the Leahy Law, and I think you got another one coming, so I'm gonna be quiet on that one. If we talk about those, I kind of look at them from the lens of you can even boil down our amendments, right? 27 amendments to one of these areas. And so, but I go back to the solution, what you mentioned earlier, Sister Amantala, is that we can, and I hear you all, but I'm telling you, if we don't do something different, which means that we have to be more involved, and if that means more shows that are teaching people, then we have to do that. But we can't sit back and then get upset that it's not being done or being done enough. Brother Fleming and you, Sister Amantala, we did that whole series on CWSC with teaching people, about all civics. And I think it takes those kind of things, and where you can have some honest dialogue. Appreciate you saying, we need everybody's views. And I think that sometimes as Muslims, we don't think other people have views that are different from ours. We're not monolithic. We're not monolithic. We're Muslims, but when I read, I might see something different than what you read. And this is why we pray on it before we read. Because I'm getting what is applicable to sometimes what's applicable to my situation, my experience, my perspectives is what I bring into the discussion. And that shouldn't be downplayed because it may not match hand to hand with somebody else's. And so, Sister, what's our next question?
We're going to go with the news. So this is one point I wanted to make. With all of this, okay, we're late people.
Someone needs to mute the phone.
You hear a phone ring? I don't hear it.
We're getting static.
Oh, okay. I don't know where it's coming from. But I was going to say that with all of this, that we're going over these laws, all right, we need to keep in mind that many of the representatives that we have in both the Congress and the Senate, they are trained lawyers. Many of them are former prosecutors. We have some who may have been criminal defense, civil rights defense, and they are familiar, or they should be familiar with this legislation that is on the books. They have a staff, they have resources, but if they're not, say if we have, let me see, who do we have that might be a representative that was, let's take Marjorie Taylor Greene. She was a small business owner here in Georgia. She didn't have any legal training. All right, so when she comes into the Congress, she does have staff and she does have resources and she does have access to those members of her party who may have the legal background that can help in understanding this legislation, right? So that when they vote with these different budgets to extend aid, and I'm going to go back to Israel because I'm going to pound this until we get something going in our community that is a force to bring change, because when we see babies where you can see their skin and bone, or babies,
Yes, yes.
just it's hmm, just talking about it and the pictures that come up in my mind, seeing these babies that are dying of malnutrition, and these coward Israeli occupation forces that shoot people who are herded like cattle to the four aid places that they have established, and then they shoot them, those who are trying to get aid. This shows you the inhumanity. Worse, it's bestiality, really. I don't know. I think animals that attack one another for food, they have, it seems like, more compassion
Mm.
than these cowards that stand behind these weapons that our taxpayer dollars provide
Mm.
to these people. And it's important for us to realize the importance of us being concerned about this issue is because our taxpayer dollars that could go to homelessness, that could go to education, that can go to affordable housing, that can go to medical research, is going to killing innocent civilians and supporting. You talk about welfare queens in the inner city. What about those welfare king and queens that are in Israel that come from the Bronx and get free housing, free medical, and we don't provide that medical care? And we have congressional leaders that pass a bill that kick millions of people off of Medicare and Medicaid and SNAP. How can we as believers, how can we stand before Allah on the day of judgment and not have done anything to correct that situation? So Cheryl talks about solutions, and I'm in your corner 100%. We need to get committees set up that look at the people who are currently in office. How did they vote? What did they support when they voted? Okay. Um, Fleming has reminded us of when we go into them, we have to look at our interests and see if we can convince them to share our interests. Okay, that's good. Do we know the interests of the people that we're voting for? I was very disappointed in both of the senators from California. Schiff, I knew how he was going to vote, and Padilla. Padilla had the nerve to stand up when Benjamin Netanyahu addressed the Congress. Stand up, clap it. And then what happened to him when he was in Los Angeles? They put his butt on the floor. They knew he was a senator, but they disrespected him. And this is the same mentality that supports Benjamin Netanyahu, who is a war criminal. And then Rubio had the nerve to sanction Francisca Albanese, the rapporteur to Gaza, when she, with her last report, she identified the corporations, international corporations, many of them US, Amazon, I think maybe Microsoft. I have to go through and read the details of that report. But many US corporations have benefited from this war in Gaza. What does Rubio do? He sanctions her. He sanctions her the same day that the war criminal flies into Washington, D.C. and meets with the president for the third time. A war criminal, Benjamin Netanyahu. And he sanctions an investigator from the United Nations. What sense? I mean, that is chaos. That's beyond chaos. That's insanity that we have elected officials and appointed officials by this administration that do and support these kind of actions. So I believe we need to look at the voting record of everybody who is in office right now. And where they come down on the wrong side, we need to dialogue with them. If they stay on the wrong side, then we need to mobilize to get them out of office. We need to inform people This is Senator Padilla. He voted to support X, Y, and Z. This is Senator Schiff. He voted to support X, Y, and Z. This is Congresswoman Latifah Simon. She voted to support X, Y, and Z. This is uh, the Muslims in Florida. That guy fine. If you don't mobilize to get him out of office, I don't know what is what. He has said such vile things about the Palestinians, about Muslims, about our faith. It just doesn't make sense for us to tolerate and not unite to get these kind of corrupt, crooked thinking people out of office. And we don't have a lot of time to do it. Like Brother Kareem said, we have midterms coming up. It's 2025. 2026, we have midterms. We have a short window to organize, strategize, evaluate, right? And
Implement, then evaluate,
implement and then
and
evaluate.
then evaluate.
And we need to
Yes,
have more American Coalition of Good Government chapters in this country, in our association. We need to have more ACGG chapters in our association so that we can organize throughout the regions in the country.
country.
We need to have that. Um, Other solutions. So, and maybe we can have a forum where we can just talk about um, and really think through what might be other solutions or at least paths that we can go in. Voter suppression. I haven't been able to get the people I want on the program for voter suppression, but believe me, brothers and sisters, that is a critical area because they are organized in the way that they rip people off of the voting rolls, eligible people off the voting rolls. They did that in 2016, they did that in 2020, and they did it in the last election, and they are using greater technology, improved software. Why do you think Donald Trump is so chummy with Elon Musk? Technology. And then he gave Musk the keys to the government. So Musk could get what? Information on everyone in the country. So it's 12:12 and I need to get off my little soapbox here, but Lee laws, and the last one was Arms Export Control Act. The Arms Exports Control Act, again, we can see the application of that to the current genocide in Israel. Um, and it's on the books. Representatives know about it, and yet and still they still allow the government to to violate the laws that we have on the books. I see you, Mahassan, but we got to go because it's already 12:13. Inshallah, thank you for your participation, but I do want to make one final statement. There, a lot of the independent journalists who are getting the word out about this administration, the fascist element of it, as well as the foreign policy uh, sins, I'll say, of it with what's going on in Gaza right now. A lot of independent journalists have gone to this application called Substack, and I encourage people to go there to get alternative reporting on what's going on. And there is one brother there on Substack. His name is Qasim Rashid. He's an attorney, human rights attorney. He's been involved in this struggle for a while. And as long as he criticized the Trump administration, people rushed in to support him. As soon as he continues his analysis and condemnation of the Israeli genocide that is ongoing, he lost 300 supporters. And the Substack, they give you an analysis of what people say, why they left your subscription. And those 300, some were financial, but the majority of them were because of his commentary on what's going on in Gaza. So it shows that there's a lot of work to be done. They have a free subscription option, but these 300 people, you can upgrade to a paid subscription to get more content. These were 300 paid subscribers that he lost. So if any of you would go and check out his Substack postings, and if you feel that you want to upgrade to a paid subscription, that would be good to be able to help them in that way. There's also Fair Fight has a presentation on Substack, which is good, that deals with voter suppression. And so I advise you to go to that too. It's called Our Rights, something with rights. And Joy Reid, she has a Substack thing there if you like what she has been doing. This week she had two women on the program that were dealing with immigration policy. And I'm going to say this one short story, one thing that they highlighted. A woman from Baji, BAJI, is an organization. Nana, I'm not going to say her last name because I can't remember it. It was Nana G is the initial of her last name. But one story that she talked about was a brother who was deported, picked up off the streets, deported, or held in detention, to be deported to Jamaica because his father was from Jamaica. Naturalized citizen, because just like John McCain, the senator who passed away, he was born on a military base in Germany. His father was in the armed forces when he was born. He was born as a U.S. citizen because he was born on a U.S. military base in Germany. He was picked up by ICE, and I believe he was waiting for some time in detention, and they were going to deport him to Jamaica because of his father's birthplace. Germany didn't want him. They said, "Well, he's not German. He was born on a military base." So this man is not so much that he's not a citizen of the United States. He is stateless. Stateless. America is saying he doesn't belong here. Jamaica is saying, well, he's never been here. He was born in America. And Germany is saying he's not a citizen of Germany. He was born on a U.S. military base. So this is the chaos that this government is creating, not only here in America, but throughout the world. And this is just one example that we know of. There might be many more. We don't know. But anyway, 12:18, we gotta go. We gotta go. Fleming, you have any final comments?
Just 5 seconds only. Inshallah, going forward, we might want to focus in on strategies and solutions as a part of our overall presentation. Strategies and solutions. No matter what we're discussing, let's also include some strategies and solutions, inshallah, going forward. My heart is filled with a lot of things, but I have to hold them into next Monday, same time, map 5. Inshallah, we'll share those at that moment, inshallah, going forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Brother Fleming, for your comments and your wealth of knowledge. Honorable Cheryl Sutter, final
What he
comment?
said, what he said,
Okay.
what he said, I don't need much more. I'm gonna stick by what I've been saying all day. We need some solutions, and we need solutions that are going to cause us to work with stealing from our organization, Sister Mata, like-minded people. We're not
Yeah.
all going to be Muslim. We're
Right.
not all going to be Muslim because we're not in charge of this country.
Right.
But if we don't find a way to compromise, to not compromise your values, but to reach some cooperative, collaborative, compromising solutions, we are going to see it gets much, much worse before it gets better. And then, Sister, I don't know if you or Brother Fleming want to announce the VRA meeting on Wednesday before people get out, or so at least it's on the recording. Voting
Yes.
Rights Act
Go
meeting.
ahead, Sister Cheryl. You announced, Sister Cheryl. Go ahead.
Okay,
It's a Senate
so
hearing.
Senator Padilla and Senator Durbin Dick Durbin. Senator Padilla is the ranking member here in California. They are having a meeting. It's 11 o'clock Pacific, 2 o'clock Eastern, and it is a spotlight on the voting rights. It's if you're in the DC area, you have to RSVP to Allison_Hunn, HUNN at rules.senate.gov to appear in person in the Senate Russell Room, 385. Otherwise, it will be live streamed. And I will tell you that I listened to a lot of Senator Padilla's meetings. And so you can either go to his page or to Dick Durbin, who's a Democrat from Illinois, his page. They're both ranking members. Padilla's ranking member of the City Committee on Rules and Administration. He was our former Secretary of State here in California. And Dick Durbin is the ranking member of the Senate Judiciary Committee. So this Rules and Judiciary Committee meeting, again, is going to spotlight voting rights, but it's titled Protecting the Future of American Democracy, Fighting a Surge in Voter Suppression. I think that I want to say that I'm not going to ask you to just log on. I'm going to tell you it's your homework assignment and give it to other people so that when Sister Matzela brings the show about the Voting Rights Act, we are addressing it from a source of strength and facts and not feelings. And we come forth, as Brother Fleming just said, with some solutions and a plan. A plan.
Yes.
Sister Cheryl,
And
can
what
you put that in the chat? And you put the attendance of that, make that available to us in the chat, please.
Back to you, Sister Matala. Let me know you want me to take us out.
Okay, I will.
okay, one of the participants also is a judge from North Carolina who was just seated after all the nonsense she had to go through. She'll also be discussing the Voter Suppression Act. I know her personally, so I invite you to join that effort. And let's do our part too, inshallah. Let's do our part. Not just discuss it. Let's do our part. All right, I'm gonna stop right there.
We got Fleming scatting. It is late. Okay. Thank you for reminding us of that, Cheryl. We also want to acknowledge the IWDM 50 event that is happening this weekend before our next broadcast. It'll be in Philadelphia, August 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. You can go to IWDM at gmail.com if you need information on the IWDM 50 at gmail.com if you need further information. And also for those in the Oakland Bay area, this Saturday, August the 6th, will be the Humanitarian Day backpack giveaway sponsored by MUI. And I would suggest that you contact maybe through Facebook Sister Amila Elamine, who is the sponsor of that project through MUI, and hopefully we can make that a success for those students who are going back to school and very soon, next month actually. So that's August the 6th. I think it's
the event has been sold. The event has been sold out. IWD 50.
Alhamdulillah.
It's been completely sold out by the grace of Allah. So you have to read about it in the Muslim Journal.
Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah. Let's pray for the success and for the safe travel of everyone there. Those traveling from throughout the country. So I think that's about it, Sister Cheryl.
One more announcement about the like-minded people. You want to announce about the scholarship is forthcoming or no?
You go ahead.
The scholarship. So like-minded people for social justice is in One Humanity. We are currently on our third year of offering the scholarship. Imam Ayman, and we welcome donations, which we can give you that information. But as well, once we get the actual date, we will announce it here and on the website for students to submit or to apply for the scholarship.
Inshallah.
It's a small supplemental scholarship, but I can guarantee you with 3 college students, every little bit helps.
For sure.
And with that, I want to say thank you to all of you for joining us today, or those who will listen to this later. We can't be disenchanted, or my grandmother used to say, we can be exhausted, we can be tired, but we shall never quit. In those words, just know that when you change what you see also changes. Do something today for someone without expectation that you're going to get anything in return, that you will have, that it will give you some kind of spotlight or attention. Just do it because it's the right thing to do. Stay prayerful, stay powerful, stay philanthropic, stay politically engaged. Inshallah, we will see you back here next week. It's Monday. It's already August
Yes.
at 10 a.m. 10 a.m. Pacific. So it'll be 1 o'clock Eastern or 10 a.m. Pacific. You know, that's this coast over here. That's the one where we enjoy more sunlight. So,
But it rises from the east.
and it sets in the west. Sets in the west. And
Alhamdulillah,
it hovers, and then not to leave out the Midwest, it hovers over the Midwest.
yes, it does.
How about that? Everybody stay safe.
Allah
For those of you who are in heat ravaged areas of the country, drink plenty of
Please.
water, get some shade, take care of yourselves. Inshallah, we'll see you next week. Peace and blessings.
Peace and blessings. Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum assalam. And do you have your final words, Sister Shah?
Peace. Well, that's a wrap.
That's a wrap. That's a wrap. Assalamu alaikum, everyone.